In this tutorial, I'll show you how to get your character ready for just some simple animation blocking, which is just basic animation where you concentrate on getting the performance and the pacing correct. So I'm going to show you three things: how to select everything in your rig and key it, so you get a nice neat time slider with all the keys in the same place kind of thing. I'll also show you how to set up step key, so it's keyframe animation without the interpolation, without the tweens between the poses, and I'll also show you how to set up a shortcut key for add and remove in betweens. So first of all, we're set up the selection set. So I'm going to bring up the hypergraph. So over in Windows General Editors and the hypergraph hierarchy here. If you've got nothing in your view, just press the A key and it will frame everything. I then need to just select all the things that I'm going to be wanting to key. So not the geometry or anything, it just needs to be the bones that I'm using, not the leg bones, but also those foot controllers. So that circle there, and the little pole vector constraint. So make sure you use the hypergraph to make sure you've selected all the correct things, because remember, if you select like the top node here, it looks like everything else is selected, but you can see it's not. So drag a selection box around it, hold Control Shift to add to selection, and click on those things there. Once you've done that, go to Create, Sets, and Quick Select Set. You need to give this a unique name, because if you name it the same as any of these nodes in here, it will not work. It will just select whatever node you've named it. So I'll call this Stan Rig, and I'm hoping nothing in my scene is named that. Add to shelf, and you can see it creates an icon on whatever selected shelf you've got. And if I click off everything and click on that, you can see it selects Stan. So it means I can now press S and key him very quickly. I'll shut that down, and then what we'll do is do some very quick animation with Stan. So what I want to do at the moment, by default, the tangents for the animation will be set to auto, so you'll get in betweens, you'll get interpolation between any movements. So I want to make sure there's no animation in my scene first, because any keys that are already there will be set to the default tangents, which at the moment are set to auto. So I can either go edit, delete all by type and channels. That will remove all animation in my scene, but just be careful that it will also remove set driven keys. So if you've got any clever things going on with your rig, it might get rid of those, so you might have to go through individually and remove any animation. I'm confident I've got no animation in my scene, so I'm going to go now to Windows, Settings and Preferences, and I want to go to Preferences, and down here Animation, and I want to change the tangents to linear and stepped, and then just save that. And now any animation keys I make will have no in-betweens. Next thing we want to do, we'll do some simple animation. I'm going to make a floor plane so I can see where Stan's feet are. So I've just made a polyplane here. I'm just going to scale it up like so. And I'll add that onto a display layer so I can't see it. Okay, not can't see it, but I can't select it. Okay, so I don't get confused when I'm working. And I'll just turn off my wireframe unshaded. That's a bit neater, isn't it? I can see everything clearly now. And we'll do a quick step key of Stan walking. So like I said, I'm going to do this a bit quickly, so it's not going to be as I would do things hopefully normally. Spend a bit more time posing, so I'll do some keys for Stan walking. So we'll just set up a pose. So very quickly, something like that. So I get him into the correct pose, I then click to select everything, and I press S, making sure my time slider is obviously in the right place. I go forward roughly half a walk cycle forwards, around about 15 frames. Now I just want to move him forward, so look, I just select that foot, and that foot. Okay, and that means, and then I just take a note of where his heel is, and I want to move that foot to roughly where that is. So about like that. I can always adjust it later. I then just want to swap his feet around if this is a walk. So let's move that one back here. You can see I'm dragging the boxes, these sort of flat boxes. It just means they're locking the axes into just two flat axes. So it just means I'm not pulling things about too weirdly in the view. So I've got him into that position like so. Pick everything, key it again. So we've got, look, you can see the step key. It just sort of determines the key poses, and I could put in betweens here, the crossover poses as well eventually. But what I want to do with the first blocking is just get the very basic performance in there. So again, I'm moving him forward, taking note of his heel. I've moved my time slider to 30, roughly to there. Swap the legs around once more. I'm not going to do this too much as this is taking up a lot of time of the tutorial. So I'll do this once more, and then we'll have him stop in a standing pose. So go to that position there, and then this one forward, rotate it around, and once more pick everything using the icon, press S. So we've got this kind of movement, and we'll have him stop at frame 45. So again, I take a note of where his foot is, pick his root node, so his waist bone, and I'll just move everything forward to about there. And this is where he's going to stop. Okay, so we'll just flatten his feet down. This is where it's good on the floor, because you can kind of see if you're moving things through the floor or not. So something like this, and let's just straighten Stan up a bit. So this is where he stops. You might spend a bit more time getting your poses nice and stuff like that. But at this stage, I just want to make sure I'm getting the timing right. So again, click on that icon, press S. Let's have a look, and he stops there. So if we play our animation back, it's just almost like a kind of animatic. It's just the key, poses, and then he stops. Okay. Now what we want to do is, if we want to adjust the keys about, it's nice and easy. Look, we can just look at this, and everything is keyed at the same pace. So if we suddenly say, no, the walk's too slow, the walk's too fast, we can move things about quite quickly. Now with Maya, you kind of have to hold the shift key down and you select things, and then you can move things about, which is a little bit fiddly. And there's a nice thing where you've got, if you right click under keys, you've got something called add and remove in between. If I tear this off and show you what it does, wherever you put your cursor, that you can add in between, and it moves any subsequent keys along frame by frame. Remove just moves them back again. It's a very quick way of moving stuff about and not screwing up any subsequent animation, because it shifts everything along, even stuff that's not on your time slider that's off into the distance, it will move those keys along. But we want to set this up to a hotkey, so we can do this quite quickly. So we're going to set this up to the kind of, I use the plus and minus key up near the end of the number keys on my keyboard. They're actually by default, they're the equals and minus key, but it's just a nice sort of thing to use because they're easily recognizable. It's plus to add in between and minus to remove in between. So look, I'll keep this here. We'll load up, I'll just deselect everything, and I'll load up the hotkey editor. So I go Windows, Settings and Preferences, hotkey editor. And this is the hotkey editor. It looks a bit complicated. So look, these are the two keys I want to use. Okay. Now by default, they are actually the minus and equals. You have to press Shift to get the plus and the minus, but we'll just set them up so we don't have to press the Shift key. And they actually conflict with the increase and decrease manipulator tool size. So if we have a look in my view here, if I pick something and I press the plus and minus keys, but the manipulator gets bigger and smaller. But I don't do that very often. So what we do, we'll switch that to the Shift plus and minus, and then we'll make the add and remove in betweens the ordinary plus and minus without the Shift key being pressed. So what we want to do, we want to find out what the script is for these. So let's just quickly select an object which has got animation on it, and we'll quickly do, look, we're doing add and remove in between, and this is so it will be in our script editor, so we'll be able to see that script. Okay, and now what I do down here in the bottom right corner is our script editor, and if I just bring that up, look, we can see it's got time slider edit keys, add in between and remove in between. That's why we did that thing, so we could see those things were the sort of two of the last things that have been added to the script editor. Okay, we go to the runtime command editor, click on that tab, and we go new, and we'll copy the add in betweens, and Control C to copy, click in here, and Control V to paste. We'll give it a name, no spaces in here. You can't put any spaces in or it'll give you an error. So add tween. We don't need a description, and we'll save that. Okay, and then we'll create another new one. We'll go back over here, we'll copy the remove in between, Control C, Control V, and we'll call that rem tween, as in remove tween, and we'll save that. Okay, what we can do now is, if we look over on the left hand side, we can go to custom scripts, and there are the things we've added. And now we want to add them some keys. So we click on add tween, and in here just press the equals key up at that, near that numeric pad, like so. And it's giving me a little warning, meaning it's conflicting with another key, obviously that increased manipulator size. Go to remove key and press the minus key, like so. Okay, I'm happy with those, so we'll save those. We'll then get rid of the increase manipulator thing. So if we go to other items, scroll down a bit, right the way down to the bottom, look, tool manipulators, and increase and decrease manipulator size. Click on that, and we'll make that one Shift plus, and we'll make this one Shift minus. So it's actually an underscore. And we've saved those. So hopefully that's all good. We can save and close that now. And it means that, look, if we want to change the manipulator size, Shift plus and minus does it, like so. But now what we can do, we can move our keys about very quickly using the plus and minus key, like so. So if you suddenly say, I want this walk to be slower, you can just move keys about like this, and it slows everything down, okay? It's just a nice way of working. Wherever you put your cursor, it moves all the subsequent keys around. The other thing to bear in mind is when you go to Windows, General Editors, Settings and Preferences, Hotkey Editor, you can see Maya has this now default duplicate. You can name that, so I would rename that, you know, I'm going to call it Matt's Keys, and OK. And this will be saved in my preferences. So look, here's the default. A lot of times when you load Maya up, it will load up the default. So you need to go in here and just go Matt's Keys or whatever you've called it, and load those up. And again, with your computers at home and stuff, you'll have to do the same thing. You can copy your preferences across. But I think it's a good way to work. The remove and add in betweens is a nice way of working. Once you're happy with your initial sort of blocked out animation, so this step key animation, and you've moved your keys about again, you can swap back to spline to see how everything's working. So if you click on your icon, and if you hold shift down and drag a selection box around all your keys, you can do this in the graph editor as well if you prefer. But if you right click and go tangents and auto, you can then see what it looks like with spline based animation. And it's very simple and very raw at the moment, but it's there that you can kind of understand the pacing of your animation, and if there's stuff that needs moving about, if you suddenly say no, it needs to be a lot faster, then you've got those plus and minus keys, so we can adjust everything and speed it up a bit, like so. You might want the stop at the end to be a bit slower, like so. So you can see it's a very quick way of changing things about. And when you want to go back into step key, same thing again, hold the shift key down, select around them all, right click, tangents, back to stepped, and then you can just focus on those key poses. So the next stage of this, I'll probably add the crossover poses here. Okay, one thing you have to be wary of with step key animation is you need to put in holding keys. So say for example I have him turn around at this point here. Let's say I have this movement here, something like this. So it's a very quick turn. I'll move this leg round with him. So, and this foot here. So say he turns to look at something over there at that point here. So I'll just click on everything and press this. What you will find is the step key will give you an impression that you've got your pacing right, but what you want to make sure, if that's a quick turn, say that's a 5-frame transition you're thinking about, you do need to have this holding frame here. Okay, so I need to go to this point here and key that position, and even though that doesn't muck up this, when I change it back to spline based, it means that he doesn't spin around really slowly. He's getting the pacing that I kind of want into my animation. So you'll see this turn will be very quick over 5 frames, like so. Whereas if I didn't have this holding key here, if I delete that key, that transition will be all the way from there to there. Okay, so do get those holding keys in there to make sure you're holding the poses and you're getting your you're thinking about the timing of the transitions quite early on, because when you swap it back to spline, sometimes when you swap back from spline from stepped, everything's just sort of moving about and there's no holding poses. So just be wary of that. I think that's everything I want to show you with this for now.